Okay. Okay. I think it's going. So, Crystal, thank you so much for agreeing and, giving me some of your time to answer some of these questions. Like I said, this is for our graduating MSWs for next semester. All of them are very excited to hear about your journey because they're going to be doing that shortly after they graduate in May. So let's just start off. Just tell me a little bit about tell them your name and when you graduated and from what campus you came from.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here and impart maybe some tips and some knowledge for soon-to-be grads. My name is Crystal Theisinon, and I graduated through the virtual MSW program this May. And yeah.
Yeah, and you went to
my
USC.
practicum through telehealth, yes, through USC.
Thank you. So let's start off with the first question. What is your mission statement and how did you go about creating it?
My mission statement, I would say, is to show up authentically in every area of my life that I can possibly, to live a life in line with my values. And I went about creating it when I realized I wasn't really fully living a life true to my values or being authentic, my authentic self, until I really changed paths and course and pursued a career in social work, which actually allowed me to do so with, I think, much more ease and fluidity.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Crystal. Let's see. Tell me what goals you set before graduation, and did they turn out to be realistic once you entered the workforce, and describe some of the tasks you completed to reach all of these goals? Kind of a loaded question,
yeah.
But the first one is, what goals did you set for yourself before graduation?
I actually set, which I thought was a bit ambitious until I spoke to other professors prior to graduating, that I wanted to land a job before graduation in my last semester. And I was told that, if I finished my practicum and I had some experience and was, maybe a few months out until graduation, that it was possible. Just kind of start, revamping my resume and writing those cover letters and getting my references. So I set that goal as soon as I finished my practicum December of last year. Okay. And so my goal was to actually land a job in an outpatient setting through the county before graduation and after completion of my practicum.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you really got one right after you were done with your MSW, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, before I was done.
Before you were done?
Yeah. So I finished my practicum in December and I started job hunting.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because you finished practicum and you still had a couple of classes left and you were working on that. Okay.
Yes.
That makes sense. Okay. So they were realistic. What you said, your goal was realistic for you.
That was validated by my professors.
And you said some of the tasks you completed, right? Getting cover letters, sending out resumes. Tell me a little bit about that process. Like where did you find this job? How did you do that?
Well, like I said, I kind of spruced up my resume, revamped my cover letter, and I use the search engines ZipRecruiter and Indeed. And I also had to know exactly what type of setting that I wanted to work in. So that really helped me in knowing I want to work in an outpatient program. And I looked online and also looked up what are some questions that employers might ask a newly graduated MSW. So that was really helpful in knowing, where do I see myself and what type of positions can I search for and what realistically, what skills can I bring to these work settings that I have gained from my practicum. So it was really important to look at job descriptions that I could see myself, being employed at, and if I had the skills to be able to demonstrate once I was in that setting.
I think it'd be helpful if you just tell me again where you're working and what you're doing.
Oh, right. So I did end up landing a job in an outpatient community mental health setting. I started job searching in December, and I landed that job in March. And so the title is, it's a mouthful, psychosocial rehabilitation specialist. So essentially I was doing some case management, some one-to-one therapy and assessments. So again, I looked at what is my experience with my practicum. I've done assessments, diagnosing, one-to-one therapy, a little bit of light case management. So I felt that was a position that was in line with what I wanted to do as a social worker, and also skills that I had already developed, and I could continue to refine in that position.
That's great. And so it sounds like you had exactly what they, you did a lot of research to match like what they wanted and what you had, right? And that's a great idea, Crystal.
And it also helped that it was county. It also helped that it was county funded. So knowing that I was going to be working for a county funded program, strong documentation skills that I learned through my practicum really helped solidify that, okay, this is something that I have the confidence to do and the skills, to demonstrate in this position.
So it's a county position through San Diego County, right? What was that? You said it almost took like 4 months to get that job?
I started applying in December, and I remember interviewing in February, and I started the position in March. So
it did take some time to get there, right?
Yes, the job search takes some time and patience.
Yeah, well, that's something that, as a instructor, that's sometimes I have to tell my students, it takes time. You're not going to get one right away, and it takes time. So I'm glad that you're able to kind of demonstrate that, your own experience.
Oh yeah, persistence and patience, grads.
And I have another question. How has your lived experience been an asset to you in meeting your goals, conducting your job search, and working as an MSW?
Yeah, again, I think kind of harking it back to the internship experience. I think my internship at telehealth really provided those strong, clinical skills for me. They were critical assets for me to meet my goals, right? Because I was able to, again, have the knowledge of diagnosing, right? And assessing, and having the one-to-one psychotherapy skills, especially on a telehealth platform, which I'm able to bring into right now. The state of the world in the pandemic is what I was doing around March.
Yeah, that's right. You landed a job right when COVID hit.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think lived experience wise, I also have worked as an internship coordinator. So having those skills of kind of, knowing what an employer looks for in a resume and a cover letter and how to job search, I think really, really helped me in finding the job that, I really wanted to land.
Did you have any challenges? Like, do you ever get like, oh my God, it's taking too long, or anything like that?
Oh yeah, you get impatient, right? So again, I started in December. I must have sent out 30 plus applications.
Really?
And then, I wasn't graduated as well. So I would say that is still an obstacle. It's not impossible to land a job prior to graduation. But, again, those job requirements, if they require you to be graduated, if they require you to have your MSW or your ASW intern number through the BBS, right? So I was hired through a conditional clearance that I would be graduated in a few months, and I would have my BBS registration number and within 6 months of hire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And right now you're currently collecting your hours,
hours. Yeah, I have my BBS number.
Great.
Took a while in the pandemic, so I expect that delay.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure our students are grateful to hear that from you, because they, like I said, will be graduating in May, and they might be experiencing, some of these challenges that you just said with the pandemic, late things happening later and later.
And I would say with that, to start the application as soon as possible, start gathering all your documents, so that could be a speedier process.
That's very helpful. Okay, so let me ask you this other question. So how did your awareness of your strengths, now I was your field instructor, so I know a lot of your strengths, change from being a student to becoming a working professional, or did you find your strengths you were already aware of blossom or expand, or did you build on those strengths in other areas?
That's a good
Another loaded question.
question. Well, I think that because my experience as a student, a practicum student, very much so matched the job description, it really helped me build on those strengths and really refine them and blossom the strengths. Another obstacle I didn't mention is that I had worked primarily with mood disorders in my practicum, and now I was, depression and anxiety. Now I was treating clients with psychosis. So that was an obstacle for me in my ability to, really challenge myself and use those motivational interviewing skills and educate myself and provide psychoeducation. And I think the strength of building rapport, right, regardless of background or cultural upbringing or, where the client came from, is meeting the client where they're at. And I think that was a strength I was really able to build upon in my current role. And the assessment piece as well. I feel that I really was able to get a hone in on the biopsychosocial assessing, and the ability to collaborate, right? Because that's something that is really important in the treatment of mental health, is having that collaboration and allowing the client to kind of move it along, but also facilitating that process. So I think that that definitely helped me to effectively provide the treatment that I needed to for the clients.
Okay, wow, that sounds great. Let's move on to the next question. So let's see. Let me see. Oh, here's a question. Well, we kind of answered this one. Did the pandemic impact your job search? Not at the beginning, but also it did impact your hiring process a little bit, right? Reflecting on your own experience, how might a development of a 1, 3, and 5-year professional plan benefit a current MSW student as they near graduation?
That's a good question. So, yeah, I think that especially if your goal is to become a licensed clinician, it is important to have, right, a 1, 3, and 5-year plan, and it would benefit you by just knowing what type of social work that you intend to practice, right? So if you do want to take the clinical route, setting up some goals of landing a job upon graduation that will allow you to accrue hours for licensure, right? So, and if after licensure your goal is to be, working in a private practice setting, thinking ahead of what that would entail. So I think it really just depends on what type of setting you see yourself working and what type of social worker you want to be, and doing the appropriate research to know what qualifications or experience you need to bring to the table. Because that's the beauty of having an MSW. It's so versatile, it's so broad, and you can, change direction in 5-10 years, right? So that's really helped me in knowing that my goal is I want to be licensed in 2 years. So I want to work in community mental health and build, my skill set and accrue my hours, and maybe one day have my own private practice.
Okay, so you've told me you're 1, 3, and 5 right now. So get your job, right?
Right.
Get licensed, which takes sometimes like 2 years, and then maybe have a private practice. Do you see yourself having a private practice in like maybe 5 years? Or what do you want? Tell me what you're going to do in 5 years, Crystal. Or where you see yourself in 5 years after you get licensed?
After I get licensed, I could see myself having a private practice, but also I have a strong background in higher education. As I mentioned, I'd really like to work as a college counselor. I enjoy working that population, transition age youth. So, perhaps that's the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
5-year plan.
I think it really speaks to what you just said also, that this degree is very versatile, right? Right now, you know, you were doing, well, as a student, you are doing telehealth. Now you're working in an eating disorder clinic, and
Right.
you know, for all intents and purposes, you want to stay there to get licensed eventually, and then maybe at that point you change directions a little bit, right? I think I think that's what's really great about being a social worker is being able
Yeah.
to do that. And then, you know, the idea of doing continuing education, maybe you switch in at year 3 or year 4.
Right. And working in different settings really helps to broaden that skill set. I didn't see myself working in a eating disorder clinic,
Yeah.
but you know, it is very specialized, and I think it's an underserved population. And now I'm learning, you know, about eating disorders. And if I end up working with that population later down the line, I will have you know, some background in that to be able to serve those clients.
Yeah, that's so true. Let me ask you one more question, Crystal. So let's say, well, this is for our graduating students. If there's something else that I didn't ask you, maybe a piece of advice or a suggestion, um, what what would you tell them? Just
Wow.
anything. I mean, we said a lot here, but
Yeah.
maybe something. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I would tell them to, you know, to be okay with being uncomfortable and still learning your style, because I think this is what I thought graduating, that I would have, you know, more confidence and, you know, be able to take on my professional work life with the storm. And the truth is that this is just the beginning of your social work career, right? And so you are building those skills and you are learning who you are as a social worker. And so, you know, really take that in and ask yourself, what kind of, you know, clinician do I want to be? Who do I want to serve? And you'll develop your style as you're answering those questions, and you'll figure out where you want to fit in social work. And just, you know, be really kind and compassionate with yourself. We're learning a lot, but we still have a long ways to go once we are graduated.
Wow, thank you. I think that is a really good piece of advice, that we never stop learning, that it doesn't end just because we're graduating. We're continually learning.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I'm sure that the students are going to really appreciate you coming in. Thank you again.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.